the French Cultural Services, we redesigned and retooled the transatlantic mobility program and welcomed the contribution and support of the US Embassy in France. The TMP, whose next call will be launched in April of 2022 and whose 2021 laureates will be announced at the end of this month, should be regarded as the ideal vehicle to launch a new mobility program. And people should regard an application to the program in 2022 this morning as an objective that you can set for yourselves in the wake of the present series of workshops that we are conducting. At the same time, I would like to conclude this morning, not as an administrator or an accidental diplomat, but as a scholar and a teacher, something that I was for over 30 years. Student mobility across the Atlantic will never bloom if you don't plant the seeds in the classrooms and in the library. Teaching together, designing joint classes, integrating the curriculum, but also launching modest or ambitious research projects that involve both French and American students and scholars is the indispensable prelude to our success. It is now my great pleasure to give the floor to Teresa Brown and to Jody Dixon from American Association of State Colleges and Universities for their introductory remarks. Thank you.
On behalf of the American Association of State Colleges and Universities, it's my pleasure to welcome you. We are delighted to work in partnership with the Embassy of France to encourage and facilitate transatlantic mobility between US and French colleges and universities. Thank you again to Vincent and Katrine for the invitation to be part of this webinar, but more importantly, thank you for including us in this important work. ASCU member institutions offer more than 3 million students each year an affordable, high-quality college education, particularly those from lower income families, first-generation college students, and or students of color. ASCU institutions are stewards of their communities, empowering economic growth and preparing graduates to be informed and engaged global citizens who live by the values of a democratic society. For decades, ASCU has supported our members through programs and services designed to help them achieve their goals of internationalizing their campuses. We have built strong connections around the globe through presidential missions. We've fostered student and faculty exchanges, and we've offered institutes for our faculty to do deep study of a country. One of the most alarming effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on higher education, among many, is the disruption of campus globalization efforts as study abroad programs were suspended and international students abruptly left the country. According to Student and Exchange Visitor Information System data, SEVIS data, US colleges and universities saw a 72% decline in 2020 in new international student enrollment compared to 2019. Consulate closures, visa backlogs, and travel restrictions remained a roadblock for prospective international students. But ASCU will continue to advocate strenuously for federal policies that promote rather than inhibit the internationalization of our campuses. We were actively involved in opposing federal policies over by the last administration that undermine the ability of colleges and universities to provide international education exchange opportunities for students and scholars from the US and abroad. Our partnership with the French Embassy is an important element in our work to promote exchange across the Atlantic. And we are so pleased that since 2014, over a dozen ASCU institutions have participated in the Transatlantic Mobility Project. And now my colleague Jody Dixon will say more about ASCU's work in this area of international education. Jody.
Thank you, Terry. Good morning and good evening to everyone joining us. Thank you for participating in today's event. AskU, as Terry has stated, is delighted to be able to collaborate with the Embassy of France in the United States on this very necessary event. As Dr. Brown mentioned, AskU provides a variety of programs across several regions for our member universities through our International Education and Global Initiatives Office. More recently, and especially during this time, we have been exploring several opportunities for our members, including new partnerships. Luckily for us, the president of AskU, President Mildred Garcia, visited France as a participant in the Fulbright US Scholar Program while she was president at Cal State Fullerton. And through this connection, she was able to continue to forge this growing relationship that we now have with the embassy. When we were invited to be an organizational partner for this event, as part of our planning and preparation, we collaborated with the embassy on developing a survey that we deployed to our member institutions. The survey focused on assessing the nature of past and current engagement of our member institutions with French and Francophone institutions. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who completed this survey, as it provided excellent insight into the nature of engagement between French and US higher ed institutions. The information that you have provided was also helpful in assisting us to decide on the format we would utilize for today's event and identifying the areas we would focus on in today's 3 workshops. I can tell you that there were several key areas that were identified in the survey, and they cannot possibly be covered over the next hour and a half, but this information will continue to inform the activities that we undertake as we continue to work with the embassy. Before we go into our workshops today, I do want to provide a brief overview of the survey questions and responses. So as I stated before, we wanted to really assess the nature of past and current engagement of our member institutions with French and Francophone institutions. We also wanted to ensure that we are very intentional about the work that we continue to do together in responding to the needs of both our US and French institutions. In summary, the survey's questions address the types of collaboration currently existing across member campuses, the overall challenges campuses have faced with their internationalization efforts related to French and Francophone institutions, and more specifically, the challenges being faced as it relates to the pandemic. There are also questions related to their current needs and how AskU or the embassy could assist with meeting these needs. In terms of these needs, the majority of respondents were interested in developing new partnerships, as well as strengthening existing partnerships in the areas of undergrad student exchanges, virtual exchanges, visiting faculty opportunities, joint class offerings, and summer programs. And one of their most pressing needs was advocacy for these types of internationalization activities on their campuses. As it relates to the general nature of engagement with French institutions, some of the respondents stated that they had absolutely none. Some stated that they had MOUs assigned. Other institutions had very active bilateral programs, and others had just started COIL activities. I do want to stress, however, that no matter what the level of engagement or activity is or was, it's interesting to note that quite a few of these respondents are with us today in our webinar. And so the experiences across today's events, participants may vary greatly, which I think provides an opportunity for deep peer-to-peer learning regarding best practices and lessons learned in your areas of interest. The responses to the survey also provided very, very deep insights into virtual learning opportunities. Respondents stated that they're very committed to opportunities for more person-to-person engagement, but they do have a better appreciation for the role of virtual programming in increasing global awareness and interest in global engagement. For most of them, the pandemic highlighted the need to develop viable, workable virtual programs for credit courses, internships, lectures, and seminars. As they have seen, it has already opened up new opportunities for international collaboration and engagement in a virtual setting. I can say that this webinar is definitely evidence of this. Considering the summary of these responses, we thought that today's workshops would address some of these areas, from scaling your programs to incorporating virtual learning as a holistic approach to fostering the in-person exchange. There was one particular response to a survey question that stuck with me. It was in the response to the effects of COVID-19 on study abroad activities. The respondents stated that the pandemic brought home the idea that international partnerships are 80% preparation and planning and 20% mobility. At AskU, we are very big on peer-to-peer learning. And so we hope that as you break into your smaller groups and workshops today, that you will think on that last statement and consider the ways that you can learn from each other as you continue your work in undertaking internationalization activities. I look forward to engaging with you across all the workshops today. Thank you.
This is workshop 1, I believe, using short-term study abroad programs as a cornerstone for expanded partnerships. A title Katrina and I thought up, although it's a little long. It's pretty descriptive of how we intend to have the session. And as Katrina said, it's a short presentation. I'll go through, it's maybe 10 or 11 slides. But I'd like to encourage folks to think about ideas during it. We'll have some discussion afterwards. If you feel compelled to interrupt in the middle, that's okay too. Send maybe a chat to Katrina and we'll stop. Something isn't clear, or if you think we should expand on an area. We do want this session to be interactive, which is why I won't be talking the whole time. But we want to make sure that we get through some of the points here. And as I said, anything that you want to add or comment on in the middle, feel free to please do so. And so with that, I will move it along to our first slide here. And before launching into exactly how to expand a short-term program, I want to recall the why, the big why you might want to do this. In my experience, and I think kind of as we look around the field, particularly of study abroad, short-term programming in and of itself has a very small impact. You might take 10 or 20 students. It tends not to have a large impact on the institution. It often has large impacts on people, on individuals, on those 20 individuals, and it's our hope that they will go on and do great things with their lives and impact the rest of the world. But it's just a small piece of comprehensive internationalization. And we define comprehensive internationalization, and this is a definition that has come through the years, mostly through NAFSA and other organizations, but a commitment confirmed through action to infuse international and comparative perspectives throughout the teaching, research, and service missions of higher education. It really is a means to advance the core learning, discovery, and engagement objectives of higher education in a 21st century context. I think there's some question about the future of global education, comprehensive international, et cetera. But I think there's still a core there that is about the education itself. As we talk about that, mobility part of it is one component, but the idea that we would give up on internationalizing the curriculum or having international research and service of higher education is, something that I think is not tenable, that we would give that up as a goal in our institutions. In fact, many of us have it in our mission statements to do just that. In today's comprehensive internationalization, and it's probably been this way for the last 10 to 15 years, it means international students and study abroad. That's a certain mobility component of it. It means internationalizing the curriculum, as I said in the earlier slide. It means internationalized research agendas. So not just those things that are local. It means having partners around the world. It means intentional engagement of the faculty on global issues, whether those are the global issues of the day, climate change, human rights, political systems, et cetera, or whether they are just working across the globe. If you're a student of the history of higher education, there's a definition of faculty as collegials and kind of internationals, I guess they would be called now. You know, and you can see this if you look back 30, 40 years, maybe even 60 years in higher education. Faculty used to engage with who they were partners with down the hall. Faculty did research with other people at their institutions. They were collegials. Their co-authors, et cetera, were people they knew and could interact with easily. Somewhere in the late 80s, with the invention of BitNet and the 90s explosion of email, all of a sudden the world opened up to faculty. They could start to collaborate as easily with somebody across the globe as they could with somebody down the hall. And as such, they started to expand who they would do their research with and what their engagement would look like. We've been, for the last 40 years then, intentionally engaging faculty in doing just that. While that's created some really interesting collaborations, if any of you belong to the old faculty club, those have probably gone out of business as nobody gathers together anymore for a 5 o'clock drink after work. And partnerships with institutions abroad. It's that those collaborations and those partnerships that are also kind of a mainstay of today's comprehensive internationalization. And those partnerships, some of them go back a long way, and some of them are new partnerships with new places that are looking to get themselves onto the international stage. And it's that last point, this partnerships with institution abroad, that we're trying to focus on today, and how to do that, how to get there with that full partnership from the short-term study abroad program.
Yes. And I also wanted to, because we want you also to share your experience here. So in the chat, I shared a link to a Padlet, and for some of you, you might be used to that. So you can all click on it and open it. And we have a couple of questions for you to think about while we talk and while we do the presentation, and that will facilitate our exchanges afterwards. And so the questions we have already, we would like to know who has a short-term program in between a US and French institution, of course, like how, especially, like sometimes we have short-term programs where it's just faculty-led and American institutions go to France and they're not necessarily connected to a French university. Or it might be the other way around. So you can share that information either in the chat or in the Padlet. That will help us for the takeaways if you do the Padlet. And then, of course, we would like to hear about hurdles to starting, but we will discuss that as we go along with our 1 hour session. And then what are the hurdles to keeping it? Because sometimes you start something and then it just doesn't work out. So keep these questions in mind, and we'll talk some more about it after we've seen the case study now from Stephen.
Perfect, thank you. So, you know, I think it's important that we find the right partners and partnerships that begin, you know, really start to look at what makes the matchup work. And like any other relationship, it starts with a courtship. And the right conditions have to exist for that relationship to take hold. One of the things I like to always ensure that we're looking at when we're trying to find that appropriate match is institutional type, the mission, the student population of the institution, that's size, that's demographics, that's who they aim to be their general student. The ability for the partner to meet the needs of, maybe it's preparing students to come to your campus or receiving students, or their ability to have the resources, labs, facility, time, et cetera, that match up with yours. You can often make relationships work when there are things that are different, but the closer alignment you have, the easier those relationships tend to be. So those are some keys when you're looking at, you know, what really makes that matchup work. The College of Staten Island, onto our case study, and our film program in France. That took some doing. We went through these kind of 5 steps here, which I'll go through rather quickly. I personally and others on campus spent time at home knowing what happens and knowing what the researchers at CSI did and want to do, finding the co-conspirators, as I call them. My first few years on campus, I spent all my time going to every event I could find, whether it was a departmental gathering, a provost tea, all the things that, after several years on campus, you say, oh, I don't need to show up to that one. I can go on with work, or I can go home after work. I went to all of them. And the idea was to learn about everybody. I think it's the role of us as managers or co-creators of international projects to have a little bit of knowledge about what happens all over campus. You don't have to obviously be the expert. That's why we have our faculty involved, but you want to know what their interests are and what they're doing so that you can be out there and understand when you find the opportunities. I'll get to a little bit about that a little bit later. In English, it's ears to the ground, right? There is, I think, a French phrase. I don't know if it's se tenir au courant, which is pretty straightforward. If you translate that from Spanish, though, it's I'd like a Quran, which is, I think, a little better. So look for those opportunities to kickstart an idea. Look for something that might be out there, like the grant support. Obviously, we're talking about these mobility grants here today, and that was a big boost for us. That was the impetus that allowed our faculty member to get even more excited about his program and his idea of building this French film program. And so we had the grant, which we applied for. We won several years ago, and that really allowed us to understand how we could bring this program together. What it also did is it gave us access to working with the consulate and building out the idea. We continued to build out our idea. The consulate helped us refine that idea. They helped us refine our partners. I will say that we had some failures to begin with. The first places we reached out to that we thought would be spectacular ended up not being our final partner, in that match wasn't there. Their needs, what they wanted out of a program that we could send to them, didn't quite align with what we wanted to. And we didn't know that at first. We didn't know it because things looked good on paper. The politeness of both partners hid that from us a little bit. But the consulate was able to say, are you sure that you've got the right partners here? Are you sure that you're working together? Because what we know, the information we know, may not lead you down, may not lead to the result you're looking for. And so that was very, very helpful to have that, to use those outside resources while we're building that idea. In the end, we did find a partner in the University of Tours. And this isn't the finding partner workshop, but I will slide into that for just a moment. It was an interesting way to go about finding them. It's about keeping those business cards. It's about remembering the people you meet and going back to the well, taking that collection of names and people over the years that will help you find the right ones. New partnerships are always important as well, but trusted partners, those that you've had relationships with in the past, allow you to move your projects ahead a bit faster, and certainly with more assurance, which is why you want to continue to keep up those relationships. We say that our partnership was a solution looking for a problem, and I'll expand on that a little bit. The College of Staten Island, University of Tours, we did partner together. That it was a long time in the making, and it was kind of what one might call the garbage can model of decision making, where you have problems and solutions floating around, and you put them together. Some people call them buckets. It actually started, let's go all the way back to 1967. Rutgers University created a study abroad program in Tours, France. Why? Why there? Why then? Well, that was the 60s. It was the start of kind of the big boom of, well, the first big boom of junior year abroads. And the French department at that time considered Tours to be the place, I hope I don't offend anyone else on the call, where they spoke the purest French. And therefore exactly where we should place students for a full year of study. They felt that this, that we want our students to learn French, and there's no better place in France than in Tours. You fast forward 20 years, and I began my career at Rutgers. So that's in the late 80s. And it was then that I had met the head of international at the University of Tours. It was Francois Rabelais at the time. But I continued to work with that person. I continued to work with the others who were in Tours for many years while I worked at Rutgers, amassing a number of colleagues through that over the next 20 years or so, right, for the late 80s till the 2000s. I had visited Tours many times. I'd spent some summers there. A lot of that was getting to know the place. And you fast forward then to today, or 10 years after that, and I need a partner. Well, I know some people. It also happened that the faculty member I was working with also knew somebody at the University of Tours. When we started talking about where in France we could run a program, it became quite a natural fit. We approached the university and then the kind of re-engaged my own relationship with the university there, and then with CSI. So the point of that story being these relationships that we have and that we've nurtured over the years are important to keep, even though we move from institution to institution, because they're the ones that allow us to really move our projects forward and expand as we go forward. There was also, Katrina and I also want to talk a little bit about advocacy and program building, again, in this kind of idea of a case study and what we did. Once we had the program, once we knew what we wanted to look like, it was important to build excitement at home. That was among students, among faculty, and among staff. It was important that we had the buy-in from the top, from the chief academic officers, our provosts, our associate provosts, our deans, the president. You need all of those folks, rather you want all of those folks to have the most successful program you can. You want them all on board. At times you don't always have all of those. It doesn't mean your program will fail. But if you want to build a lasting, sustainable program, it's important to do that. Through students, we had some scholarship money. That was one way. We worked through the department, our media studies, our media culture department, which allowed us to have access to students who are interested in filmmaking. We branched that out to other areas where students had the types of experiences that would lend themselves well to this kind of film program. There's a question in chat about me explaining it a bit more. Sure, I'd love to. The program itself is a short-term 4+ week summer program. And the initial idea was from a film theory professor, but we also wanted to be able to do production. So what we have now is an ongoing program. We do it every other summer, where students from the College of Staten Island and from other CUNY schools, and even we've taken students from outside, come together, travel to France. They, as a group, understand French film. They watch French film. They French films while they're there. They discuss the theory behind it. At the same time, they develop a script, or they develop an idea, write a script, edit it, then they go out and they film it, and then they do post-production. They do all of this, hopefully within the program. Sometimes we've done post-production after the program, and then they're left with a short film. Usually we're taking between 10 and 15 students. Our goal is 12 to 15 at all times in this program. It's the right size to break them into groups and to kind of do these filming projects. We have used some grant funds to purchase film equipment. So we've purchased the cameras, which we take along with us. We've had some graduate students come along who have been very helpful. But the idea is that there is a tangible piece at the end that they can hold on to, that they can show, that they can put into their portfolio, that they have credits on, that they can enter into contests. We've gone as far as to take that film and show it back on campus, not just in festivals, but also in our first year film classes. And we're using that as a sustainability loop, so that as a first year student in a film class, you're watching films that were developed by third and fourth year students who went on the program. Builds that excitement that I get to do the same thing if I want to major in this area. Or if I want to, work in this area. Again, we draw from across the campus. The same with the faculty. We have a rotating set of faculty who have been interested in this program, and then staff who support it. So these are all ways that we've built it so that we continue to showcase these films. So we have a library of these films that happen summer after summer. And as I said, students have a real production credits, real editing credits, real writing credits on their portfolio before they go. That's also helped buy-in from the top. Our chief academic officers, our deans, our presidents love to show student work, love to show when work wins awards or when it can be shown at a festival or things of that nature. So we're always sure to continue to publicize when these pieces come out and what these students do later, so that we're showing how important this program is for the campus. I spoke a little bit earlier about understanding your partner's needs, and I want to just expand a little bit on that. There is just utilizing the program to understand your partner's needs. I talked about what those needs might be, whether they're exchange, whether they're research, whether they're funding for that place. But I'm talking now about how to actually go about doing it. What we did is, because the program itself needed the faculty member to go over there, because in preparation for the program, we had to go and build the program. We had to go on site, see on site. Each time we went, we asked to see not just the office that dealt with the short-term program, because they actually have personnel there, but could we start to expand who we met with? Could we meet with the head of international? That was easy. Could we meet with faculty who were around? Could we meet with others who were interested in other projects that we might do between the two institutions? What about the upper administration? We ended up meeting with the president of the university. The CSI faculty member is a charming fellow who speaks French, and hit it off quite well with the president of University Tour. And that, of course, opened many, many doors. Once we had that relationship, we could start to build from that. We could start to look at the other types of relationships that we have. For example, we'll be bringing a group of their students to CSI, kind of the reverse of the film program, but we'll be doing a slightly different, it'll still be in film and production, but it'll be a slightly different bend. We have been able to expand the ideas to other academic areas where Tour needs to get their students out. They want to come to New York City. They want to learn about the culture, these types of things. We can run some cultural programs. There is a research program now that is beginning between the faculty member who went and his colleagues that he met there. So they're starting to put together papers. They're starting to put together some research on film. They're starting to write collaborative reviews, things of that nature. So we've started to explore the options that exist between the two institutions, looking at maybe it'll be student exchange. We haven't gotten there yet, but from there up through faculty exchange and research, and these are all the ideas that we've been working on. We know it takes time and effort, but that's what we do. We have nothing but time to spend and to continue on and working on these types of relationships. Expanding that conversation, as I said, building on context, bringing in others. So we've started to bring other faculty from CSI into it. We've talked to a lot of people on campus about what we're doing and how we might expand the ideas, where they are, what the Dean of Humanities, for example, needs, what the Dean of Science needs, and how does that fit into our existing partnerships? And as I said, patience. It takes time to develop these things. Sometimes we have stutter starts, sometimes our lives are interrupted by all kinds of things. But that's the model that we work on. Get a kernel of a program and then take it, take it bigger from there as we can. And maintaining relevancy. As we look to the future, what's the flexibility? How are we staying up to date? Understanding the changes. Tours just turned over their international office. They have a new set of people who are running the office, and we need to maintain that relationship. It's been a little hard the last year and a half, but we'll soon be back on track, ensuring that we're meeting with them both virtually and in person. Well, understanding the new needs as the university has changed. They're going through a set of rapid changes. They've changed their name recently. They're changing quite a bit of focus. And we want to understand those as a good partner, how to change with them, how to have flexibility into the future about what's going to happen. And that, encapsulates the totality of what we're trying to do, which is, start with this idea, start with this thing that happened through this grant. We're very lucky to be able to do that. And then, bring it to a full-fledged institutional expansion. The College of Staten Island is one of the 25 colleges at the City University of New York. Each of us have our specialties. As a college, it's a bit of a misnomer. We have undergraduate degrees, we have many master's degrees, we have four doctoral degrees, plus we engage with the PhD center, the graduate center at CUNY. And one of the other things we do is we bring our relationships from various institutions abroad through the college to the other groups, the other colleges and the other international offices at the City University of New York. So that's one other way that we've maintained relevancy, that we've expanded our contacts and expanded our programming. If that program started at CSI, terrific. If that program started at Baruch College, we're about to launch into a relationship with a institution in the DR that we met through this expansion idea. And ever expanding the universe of who we know and how we stay up to date with them is super important. So that brings us to about 11:25, about 20 minutes in. It's about the amount of time I wanted to just spend giving you a background of this. And I thought maybe we could open it up to some of the questions, perhaps in the Padlet or right here on Zoom. Where have you taken relationships? What have been the challenges that you've faced? And what are your success stories? I do see there's one other question in there. Does language have a place in your exchange? We chose in this exchange not to have language as part of it, or rather not French as part of it. It was primarily a practical decision to ensure that we had enough students to go on the program and enough students to engage with it. Most of our film, both production and theory students, were not strong enough in French to do so. I will say each year we've had 2 to 3 students who have been strong enough joining the program. And that has been a tremendous boost, right? They have served as interpreters. They have served as sometimes gateways into the community. One of the years we did a documentary film. It was for lack of a better term, man on the street type of documentary. And it was in, I believe it was in 2016, right after there was a terrorist attack in London and in France, I believe, 2016. And so they actually wrote kind of a script, a set of questions, and then did a documentary about how people on the street in Tours felt about terrorism and what it meant to them and what it meant to their society. And then they turned that into a film from there. I think the language will have an important part in our future. Our intention is to get to a point where we have students going back and forth, and clearly students who are going to study there are going to need a level of French to be able to engage there.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you so much. So we've already seen, like on Padlet, we have a couple of questions, and we also have a couple of examples. So I would like to hear from you, maybe. So Université Catholique de Lille, you shared a little bit about your short-term program, and that actually answers one of the questions I heard from Toulouse. Or I saw from Toulouse, there was a question about how to get American students interested. Stephen already said something about it, reminding us if we bring faculty over, they are the best ones to recruit afterwards. So does the person from Université Catholique de Lille want to share a little bit more about the program?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So my name is Matthew Kinney. I'm in charge of the short-term programs at the Lille Catholic University in Lille, France. So based on the questions that were placed on the Padlet, do you have short-term programs between US and French institutions? We do. We've been running a short-term summer program. We do 2 sessions for this program, one in June, one in July, pardon me. Of course, they've been impacted by COVID last summer and this summer as well. But we've started these programs in 2001. This is a program that we offer to multiple American universities, but also to universities outside of the US. So it's really an international program where we have around 250 students from 20 different countries that participate. In terms of what have been some of the hurdles to starting it, as Stephen had mentioned, a lot of it is based on connections. So certainly if we're attending any of the trade fairs or any of our existing partners that we've had over the decades that the university's been involved in international student mobility. And really also the next hurdle is getting students interested in coming. But once you get the partner, we always try to do something a little extra for a new partner, whether we invite a visiting faculty member to teach a course or to participate in the program, so that when they return to their home university, they become the champion for that program or an ambassador for the program is really, really important. And that's something that we see really helps us find the right partners. Once we know that the faculty member or administrative member is on board with the program and sees the benefits that it offers, they really take that back to their home university and begin to promote the university and get both their colleagues and students on board to join us. So that really does help in terms of keeping the program going. Not sure if you want any additional information, but that's kind of, I think one more important thing would be making sure that you're in touch with the partners so that the courses you are offering are relevant. So our summer program offers 20 different courses in 6 different areas of study. So we're constantly in touch with kind of what we refer to as our premium partners. And those are partners of ours that send us a good number of students every year and has done so since the beginning of the program. And we always make sure that our courses are relevant to what their students are studying currently or actually at university. So if we need to tweak the courses or to introduce new courses, we do that with our partners. One, it implicates them in the program, and 2, we know that we're offering courses that are relevant to a student's education, at this date and time. So I think that's something really important, is to, not be afraid to offer new courses and to tweak existing courses so that you have something of relevance to the students who will be joining you. So thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing. And I think, yes, that's very relevant. And you said courses to be relevant, and that precisely that also means courses where they can actually transfer back credits. And that's an interesting question, especially when it's the French partner initiating a program. When the US partner is initiating a program and it's faculty-led, then that's the whole point. But when the French partner is initiating a program, it's good to work with 1 or 2 partners and see how students can transfer back credits, which is something interesting also linked to the question of cost, because if students can get credits, then it's really more relevant, and it's even more relevant, not only intellectually, but for their academic development. I keep it short and I'll go to Emily, who raises her hand. Thank you, Emily. Go ahead.
Hi, yes, thank you. So I am wondering if, similar to what we just heard, the description of the program, that's an existing standing program, is it easier for US universities to tap into these already existing programs than to like sort of build something from the ground up? It seems like it would be easier. And then if it is easier, then do a lot of French institutions have these, short-term summer programs where they're receiving students internationally?
Let me just tackle a little bit of that. Hi, Emily. I think it is easier, particularly when we talk about cost and when we talk about minimum number of students to get to find an existing program. I think there are a lot of them in France. They're not always with French institutions of higher education, right? Sometimes they're language schools, sometimes they're other places. That's not a quality issue, that's just a reality issue. A number of the French institutions that I'm aware of don't always have summer programs because that's just not what you do over the summer in France. They also don't always have they don't always have the profit motive that US institutions have, if that's brash enough to say. All of our nonprofit institutions certainly seem to have a profit motive. At the same time, I think the hurdle that you face in doing that is faculty engagement, because faculty want their own program. And I think that, you then have to battle, well, do we have a faculty-led program where it takes on the personality of the faculty member and or has that recruitment part, or do you go the route of joining an existing program? And I think that's a really tough balance. I think when you go the faculty route, you have a better opportunity for expansion, if that's the goal. If the goal is to get more students abroad, you probably have, plugging into a number of different programs is probably easier to do, but I think it's a struggle we all face.
Thank you, Stephen. Alejandro, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, I am Alejandro, Director of the International Relation from Excelia, France, in La Rochelle, and I would like to talk from the France side. We have several programs in summer, and we open to all our American partners, and we use the summer programs to balance our exchange, because we realize that the American partners, they go more and more in the short program than in the semester programs. Why we prefer the short programs open to all our partners than the faculty-led programs? Especially because the faculty-led programs, sometimes we don't know until last time if we have enough students to open or now. If we open to all partners, we know, and we can say to all our partners, even you have one student, it's okay for us. It will be running in summer because we will complete it with other international students. Sometimes they are Americans, but sometimes, most of the time, you have students from Asia, from Latin America, even some French students that they want to earn some credits. They take summer courses. So for us, it's more interesting to open to all our partners than the faculty-led programs. But in one sense, sometimes some institution, they ask to do a faculty-led programs. So we are open to doing also, but we offer also another possibility that sometimes with our American partners, we propose to invite some faculty to teach 1 week or 2 weeks in our summer programs. Normally, the summer programs, they can go from 2 weeks until 4 weeks. It depends on the credits that the students they want to earn. And we offer to these American faculty partners, if they want to come to teach 1 week, and we can arrange that. And it's a way that we use to attract the faculty, because the faculty is very important. The faculty, they are the first that they speak to the students, and they speak about the programs, and also to keep balance with our American partners. That's it.
Yeah, those hybrid ideas are I think exactly where the future is. You know, as more and more people run study abroad, the pie is maybe being sliced smaller and smaller. It's getting harder in many ways, unless you're going to hold on to your own students. But those hybrid ideas are excellent ideas on how to expand things. Even sometimes allow have the foreign institution do what they do best. Maybe that's language instruction, and then have an add-on course. We'll be running, we hope, a program to Cuba where our students will, in the morning, take a language course to bring their Spanish level. They have 9 levels, so they can put the students in any level. And then in the afternoon, our faculty member will be teaching a course. And it allows us to defray the costs of having the program, bring it down a little bit, have fewer students, and still be able to send a faculty member to teach one course that comes out of us and one course that comes out of the partner. Even then, you're expanding that partnership. You're not just utilizing the partnership for classroom space, which is an important consideration as well.
So everybody feel free to use to unmute and ask questions, or to use the raise hand feature. If you want ask more questions, I can also take, thank you for all who shared comments on the Padlet. I see them all, it's very interesting. So we talked so there are a couple of questions about cost. Cost is of course always a big issue with study abroad. And I think we already heard a little bit about it. It's one of the first things we have to do when designing those programs, make them cost efficient. And scholarship money is of course always necessary and welcome. And it's when we come from France, in the French system, we have scholarships for students who go abroad for a semester, who go abroad for an internship. There is some scholarship money provided by the state or the region. On the US side, it's a bit more tricky. You have to work with foundations, you have to work also with public services and bring everything together. So thinking about bringing down the cost from the beginning and making it cost efficient would be, from my point of view, the most important advice. And then the second thing we already said is, if we want students to invest, and we believe that study abroad and international education is a good investment, it's a necessary investment, then it should have an added value. And that not only intellectually or not only personally, but an intellectual value or a value for their academic progress. And that means earning credits towards their degree. And that's so, and that's some of it's not a real solution. It's not the magic solution we would all want for the question of cost. But these are a couple of ideas to make the investment worse and to motivate students to contribute, actually. Does anybody want to share an additional point on that? No?
We can ask everybody to raise their hand whose institutions are very rich and just willing to, fund this for the students. Yeah. I would love to hear from the group who has solved or made inroads into solving that cost issue, solving because when the costs go up, it looks like this is just a luxury for our wealthy students, and I think that's an important thing that we dispel. But it's a tough thing. Some of our strategies have been to partner with other U.S. institutions. So we'll look for another U.S. institution just like us, and we'll run a joint we've tried, haven't had great success yet, but run a joint program where we can each bring 6 or 8 students to the table. Maybe it's taught one year by one faculty member and another year by somebody at the other. That's one idea we've had. It's not been easy though. I was previously at a place where we had some flexibility in the way that tuition worked. And what we were able to do was gather instead of the kind of the tuition dollars all going into a bucket over here that the registrar / bursar controlled and the faculty being paid out of that, we had access to that fund. We had negotiated a deal. Basically, we would pay 10% of the tuition had the student stayed on campus, and the rest would come to us. We would pay the faculty member. The advantage there being that if you take 12 students and they're each paying $1,000 in tuition costs, which is relatively low, right? You have $12,000. It probably costs you less to hire the faculty member than that. When you work on the models where, sometimes more, when you work on the models where the institution takes the 100% of the tuition dollars, the differential between what the faculty member gets paid and the rest kind of goes off into somebody else's bucket. Now, maybe that's the president's bucket and that's the way they prefer it. But, negotiating with that upper administration sometimes can help lower the overall cost, if that made sense to people.
Go ahead.
If I could add, when it comes to the cost, what our university has done for study abroad, and we have had several programs to France, we came up with the idea of dividing the academic year into 3 semesters. Our problem was that state funding for tuition was only offered to students in 2 semesters, fall semester and spring semester. But when the financial aid office found out that they could divide the financial aid of students to pay for tuition into 3 semesters, fall semester, spring semester, and summer, then the students can then save up their financial aid and use that financial aid for tuition for the study abroad. Now, depending on how certain universities are, and I know private universities do not have this limitation on the use of tuition funds, we are not allowed to use certain types of funds for travel costs for scholarship. We can only give the scholarship to the tuition of the students. So again, making sure that our French partners, the French institutions, understand that sometimes scholarship monies or financial aid monies here in American universities have certain limitations to them. We can't use them for plane tickets or for lodging, but we can use them for tuition. So being creative and having your institution divide the semesters into 3 so that then the financial aid can be used in the summer, because most students only consider short-term summer study abroad rather than full semesters, then that's one way to solve the problem.
Excellent idea. Yeah, it goes back to that advocacy at your campus and getting your director of financial aid and your registrar and your provost to have that flexibility to understand that it doesn't all run from September to December and January to May. There are other systems in the world, maybe even older than ours, and they may have other ideas on how things can work, and building those relationships on campus are invaluable.
Yeah, and so just so everybody a little bit on the timing, we might move back to the session around 11:50, maybe a little bit later, as we started a little bit later. So we're getting closer to the end. I wanted to ask a question that has been asked on the Padlet. So from Troy University in Alabama, if I get that right, maybe the most difficult hurdle that we have is that our students need to be taught, our faculty need to teach in English language. Is this possible at the institutions represented here, whether it is a student exchange, faculty-led program, or faculty exchange? So who of the French institutions wants to say something about programs taught in English? Benjamin, go ahead.
sorry, because I know people are very advanced in their projects, so I'm a little bit shiny about talking. But regarding this question, so let me present short bit, very few things about me. I've been in US for 5 years now. I'm actually in New York. I've seen somebody from New York University. I'm at Courant, so I have some exchange here with US, but it's at the research level. And so, but we are proposing at Le Havre an experimental program, and I'm very glad to hear all about you. So the project is to teach classes in English, and we have some ways to open it to students, but this is a crucial question. So at my university, I discussed with some people, and we are open to teach some courses in English because, well, English it's the language of the world. So I speak French, but so we are teaching for them some course of math in English and opening it up to some people in US or all across the world. But so we are developing that. But you are guys very much more advanced than that our project. But we are working on that, and it's a future, and so there is all this question of money. So I've been discussing with that with my colleagues, and so, but there's something to do. I'm glad to be here to hear about your ideas. So thank you.
Alejandro, thanks, Benjamin. Alejandro.
Sorry, if sorry to talk again. I think like most of you know, there is two systems, higher education systems in France. That is the universities, the public universities, and the Grande École. I am representing a Grande École, and for us, teaching English is the past, because we did 15 years ago. Some of our programs, they are full teaching English. For example, we have BBA International, that is for if we want to attract international students, we didn't have the choice. We have to do it. It's something that sometimes maybe the universities in France, they are already discussing about it, but most of the Grande École, they already did 10 or 15 years ago. In our master degree, for example, there is some specializations that they are full teaching English also. And for example, if we attract international students, not only exchange students, degree-seeking students. In our case, in Excelia, in some programs, the international students, they are 30% of the full population, and they are teaching English. We didn't have a choice. For us, this discussion we had 15 years ago.
You made it very clear, and I'm very happy to have both of you support that. French universities today are highly internationalized. Schools, our business schools, engineering schools, a lot of them are, have a big number of English degrees, and that's across the board. And everybody who's part of this conversation, everybody who's part of the international conversation, and that is most of French universities and schools, do teach in English, and are always happy to develop programs in English.
But may I add a short comment? Or?
Yeah, very short, and then we'll start to wrap it up. And if anybody wants to share main takeaways, we'll go after Benjamin.
Yeah, I think there's an heterogeneity with for example, business schools, of course, but for example, in science, in math, the research is in English for sure. But if you talk at the first year students, it's not so clear. There's a lot of heterogeneity in the what are you teaching and things like that.
Yes, but it's important that we share this kind of information. So anybody wants to share takeaways to help Dr. Babette Villena Alvarez to share then in the main session? And I'm feeling sorry to cut off our discussion because I really appreciate it, really to hear from you to see the comments on the Padlet. We will use that. We will share that as well, and because afterwards, and yeah, I think we have to go ahead.
How do I share the notes? Is it by email?
No, we'll stay on. We'll all go back into the main session. Thank you for those questions, so I can make sure everybody stays on.
All right, I think almost everyone is here. I hope you can hear me. Please, if there's any issues, let me know in the chat. So my name is Anna Mallon, and I'm Higher Education Program Officer at the French Embassy in the US. And with Natalie Cox, who is Deputy Director of Campus France, we will be your co-hosts for this workshop. So don't hesitate to send us a message in the chat, or if you have any questions or any technical issues, we can help with that. So during this 1-hour workshop, Maria Alves from Texas A&M and Regis Kubler from Métiers Institute of Technology will share with you their approach to using online collaboration and how it helped them develop the infrastructure for future in-person exchange. And they will present their projects and engage with you during interactive activities using tools like Direct Poll and Padlet. And we really want these workshops to be interactive and to create dialogue. So please, we encourage you to participate actively to these activities. The speakers will be setting time for questions during the presentation and at the end. So don't hesitate to write down your questions in the chat during the session. And we will also open microphones so you can ask your questions or share your own experience to the speakers. So I will now ask if someone would like to volunteer, like Katrine said in the main session, to report back. So during our next session, and if you're interested, please let us know in the chat. So you will just need to take some notes during the workshop and then briefly present the main takeaways of Maria and Regis' presentation. And there will be also a time at the end of this session when everyone will be invited to share and comment on what they learned. So the person who volunteers will be able to harvest everyone's takeaways for a more representative review. And there will be, like we said, a volunteer from each workshop. And this presentation will be a great way to launch the discussion between participants and speakers during the last session of this event. So do we have any volunteer? No one?
I can do it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Michael. This is much appreciated. So perfect. I will now leave the floor to Maria.
Hello, howdy, bonjour. It's our pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for the invitation. I'm going to be sharing my screen here. Regis and I prepared some slides to share with you, and as Anna said, some engagement activities. The first one will be using direct poll, and you can use either your smartphone to scan the QR code or just the link in the chat to participate. But we'll have some more instructions as we get there. So we are Texas A&M Engineering and Art Métiers. We call ourselves A&M Square. A&M, Art Métiers is also A&M, and Texas A&M is A&M. So we call ourselves A&M Square. And I'm Maria Alves. I'm the Senior Director for Halliburton Engineering Global Programs. And we have a very robust partnership between Texas A&M and Art Métiers, and I'm leading the education programs. I've been working in the College of Engineering since 2012 in building different programs for our students to go abroad. Our goal is to have at least 50% of our students study with a global experience. And for that, we need to have about 2,000 students studying abroad each year. Before COVID, we were about 1,000 students going abroad each year. So we had already a long way to go to double our numbers. And now with COVID, we need to recover again. So these types of partnerships and programs really help us. Regis?
Yes, good morning, bonjour. So I'm Regis Kubler. I'm an associate professor at Métiers Institute of Technology in the south of France on Aix-en-Provence campus. So I'm teaching solid mechanics, so I'm more of a subject matter expert here, but with Maria, I'm leading the education programs under the AM Square partnership. And I contributed to make professors and academic faculties and advisors work together on both sides, and to so that they can understand each other in their practice by student exchanges.
Perfect. So just a little bit about Texas A&M and the College of Engineering. Texas A&M is the oldest and the largest university in the state of Texas. We're located in College Station, which is about an hour and a half from Houston, 2 hours from Austin, and 3 hours from Dallas, kind of in the middle of that uneven triangle. And we at Texas A&M, we have over 75,000 students in the College Station campus, but as well as in the branch campuses of Galveston, McAllen, and the one in Qatar in the Middle East. In the College of Engineering, we have over 21,000 students, and the building that you see there is our main education building. It's called Zachary Engineering Education Complex. We have 710 faculty members, And even though we are large, our proposal is that there will be no engineering class that will be larger than 100 students in the class. So the quality is very important as the size of the institution, and developing students that have this global mindset is part of the 25 by 25 growth plan that we started in 2013. So we're almost there with 21,000 students, and would like to have at least 50% of those graduating with the global experience. So that's just a quick overview for the context of Texas A&M and the College of Engineering.
So for our Métiers, I think that's the next slide. So yeah, let me give you a short overview of our Métiers Institute of Technology. So our Métiers is a unique engineering school in France with 8 campuses and 3 institutes located across France. I'm located in the south of France in Aix-en-Provence. So the major strengths are in mechanical, industrial, and energy engineering. And our Métiers is renowned for its close industry links, but compared to Texas A&M, we have only 6,000 students in engineering. Our Métiers has 11 engineering programs and more than 20 Master of Science degrees. Our principal missions are to educate engineers and managers for tomorrow's global industry, for lifelong learning, and we link education to innovative industry-focused research. So we send students abroad to have an international experience. We host also foreign students. We've been collaborating with Texas A&M for a long time. So by hosting internships or study abroad programs, and now we will share with you another experience of those student exchange with Maria.
Thank you, Regis. So the project we'll be presenting today was part of the FACE Foundation grant that we were awarded last year. And the idea was to use this COVID year that we couldn't really travel to build the infrastructure and develop student ambassadors as well as faculty and advisors as ambassadors, so we could go into the in-person exchange even stronger than before. So when they had that call come up, we thought was very timely and very aligned with our goals for that year that we couldn't travel. A little bit about the partnership. As I mentioned, we call ourselves the A&M Squared Partnership. Métiers and Texas A&M are 2 very strong engineering institutions, and they have been collaborating for over 20 years. And a few years ago, we decided to formalize even more our partnership, creating the A&M Squared Transatlantic Partnership with the focus in the global manufacturing industry. Manufacturing has always been a strong area for Métiers, and it's an area that A&M has decided to be one of its strategic focus. So this partnership came very natural. And the idea is to do it through extensive research collaboration, education program, and mutual faculty and student exchange. And Regis and I are leading together the education and the student exchange side of this partnership. So when we launched this program, some of the existing collaborations that we had already is the research partnership that is going strong. They have some grants together, some Fulbright research exchanges. We have a very good faculty-led study abroad program that before COVID, we had done for 2 or 3 years with a good number of students, 25 students, then 50 students, and then I think it was COVID year. And we have collaborative degree and dual degree. And the idea for the grant was to build on a joint virtual global engineering design course and to set up the infrastructure for a reciprocal exchange. We are on our 2nd year of the agreement for the reciprocal exchange, but on the first time, the first 5 years, we did not reach reciprocity. We had more French students coming to Texas A&M, more Métiers students coming to Texas A&M, than Texas A&M students going to Métiers. And we decided to take that year to really map the courses, to identify the bottlenecks and build this strong reciprocity on the exchange, the semester exchange. So our goal for the project was to build infrastructure for a large and sustainable exchange of students between Texas A&M Engineering and Métiers, mainly the Aix-en-Provence campus. And we wanted to do that in a holistic way, focusing on students and the academic advisors and the faculty members. So I'll start the first part of the presentation with the Global Virtual Design course, so the student part, and then Regis will present the part that we work with the faculty members. So just an idea about the course, students carry on an engineering design project in a virtual environment where they work with teams of students from different locations. So Texas A&M students with students from France, but we also had the participation of students from Swansea in the UK and from Aristotle University in Greece. In addition to the project, students also apply intercultural models. We also teach them about cultural differences and different communication styles, as well as global enterprise fundamentals and the remote collaboration. So those are part of the lectures and the exercise, the activities that students do throughout the class as they are moving forward with their projects. The learning outcomes that we have for this class, and it's a one semester class during the fall, is that students finish the class being able to integrate and apply skills required to solve engineering design problems, that they can apply intercultural knowledge to self-improvement, intercultural knowledge to work effectively in teams, that they are able to identify cultural differences and similarities, but more than that, that they can see the relevance for being effective in the workplace, and that can apply synchronous and asynchronous technology for remote collaboration. Here's the class schedule, just to give you an idea of how the class moves throughout the semester. We start the first 2 weeks with the remote collaboration tools and how to work in multicultural teams and also multidisciplinary teams. The students come from all different majors in the College of Engineering. In the second or third week, we divide the students in teams where they work not only for the project, but also for those assignments in the cultural competency development. And they start working on their project on the second, third week. The projects come either from industry or for projects that we have under the A&M Square collaboration, our researchers already working together. So on the second week, teams are formed, and here's just a sample. We had 8 teams, so here are 2 of the teams. Regis was leading one of the projects, and then Osvaldo was the person from a company called Tenaris. They provided another project. And those are the project contacts, or like the client for the engineering students. They meet with those contacts throughout the semester, and at the end, they need to provide a solution that the project contact or the project supervisor is happy. And you see that we have students from different majors working together and from different institutions as well. Our goal with this class is to develop global engineers. So students that understand and appreciate cultural differences, students that understand the different cultural groups will think, feel, and act differently, that there's no culture that is better than the other, and that facts are different than interpretation, that we use interpretation, that we use our cultural backgrounds to interpret facts, and that a global competency, having those global competency skills, will make you a more effective and efficient engineer. A lot of times engineering students think that those things are just fluff or that is nice to have, but we really want them to understand that this is important for them to become a better engineer. So we have different exercises throughout the class, and we would like to do one of them here with you. So if you can either take the QR code or click on the link to participate on the activity.
So I put the link in the chat.
Thanks, Regis. So we have the QR code here as well. So it's the spectrum exercise. So thinking about yourself. In the first one is in terms of communication style, and the second one is your work style. Are you a very direct or indirect communicator? And are you a very individualistic or collectivistic person, or somewhere in between? So let me change screens here and go to the poll. So I'm going to share a new screen and get the poll started. So here is the poll. So I'm going to start And those are the answers. So if you can start with question 1, the direct or indirect communication style for you. Very direct, direct, somewhat indirect, indirect, or very indirect. Did everybody had a chance to answer question number 1?
I think we still need to wait because we are 21, so maximum of maybe 17. We'll reach it soon. I think it's okay.
Okay, so moving to question number 2. Individualistic or collectivistic? What would describe your work style? Did everybody had a chance to answer? I think we can pause the poll and share the results. So from what we saw here, let's see how things will show up here. Can everybody see the results? Yes, great. So from what we saw before, most people here either from the US or from France, right? But we have a broad range. Nobody is very collectivist, but from collectivist all the way to very individualistic, we have a good number of people participating. Collectivist and somewhat collectivist are the highest. And let's go, I should have gone to the other one. So let's see here, question number 1, the answer for the direct and indirect. Let's see the results, indirect and indirect. So nobody's indirect or very indirect. We start with the mix being from somewhat direct and very indirect, right? So I'm gonna go back to the presentation, and I took the answers from a researcher called Storti, and he has placed people in a spectrum, and we're gonna see, go back to the sharing the right screen. So we should be now back at the presentation. And if you're seeing the indirect communication, everybody should be in the very direct if they are from the US, and kind of in the middle if they are from France. But on that poll result, we saw people all over the place, except for the last 2. So in a way, it falls within the country norms, but we still saw a larger variety. And the same thing with individualistic and collectivistic, should be very individualistic and more to the individualistic side. But on this poll, we saw a lot of people in the somewhat collectivist. So this is an exercise that we do with the students. And the goal is that besides the students developing their self-awareness, we also share with them that even though we teach them those country norms, and some of the researchers we talk about is Hofstede, Aaron Myers, and as well as Storti, they can see that we cannot stereotype anybody from any culture. So they really should use the tools that we give to them throughout the class to develop a authentic working style with a different group, and that they can become a more effective engineers. Throughout the project, they identify some obstacles, sometimes time zone, sometimes it's language, but they also see that approaching engineering problems from different perspectives, or the way they divide the work, can also be impacted by those cultural differences. So by the end of the project, at the end of the semester, students get a certificate, and we're developing them to be our ambassadors. So even though we couldn't travel, those students understand the importance of global competency for engineers, but they also got to know a little bit more about Métiers. Some students were part of the project that we have in collaboration with Métiers, and they can share with the students, and some of those students will be the ones that we are recruiting to go abroad in the spring, or that will be talking to their students, to the lower classmates, to go abroad in the spring or in the summer. So going from this virtual class to the in-person exchange. Another thing that we also have in partnership with Métiers is the dual degree. So some of these students are seniors and they are thinking about grad school, they are becoming interested in the dual degree, where they'll do 1 year at Texas A&M and 1 year at Métiers, and finish the master's with 2 masters, one from France, one from the US. So the course will continue. We'll continue with this virtual to in-person, even though COVID is going away. And next summer, we'll be able to travel normal. Already in the spring, in the fall, we hope that we can travel more normally. But the class will continue, as we want to continue to have the momentum and continue to have students as ambassadors for this program. So with that, I would like to open up for questions. So this is a type of COIL collaboration that we developed, and we have a good number of students. Last year, we had 28 students from Texas A&M and 2 students from Métiers, but we should continue to have about 28, 30 students from Texas A&M this year, and most likely 8 to 10 students from Métiers. So the program is growing, and the virtual, we plan to continue to have that.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
This is Doviel from Alcorn State University. First of all, let me congratulate you all for a really, good program. But my question has to do with, first of all, languages. The students from Texas A&M, when they travel to France, do they have to take classes or do internship in French? And if they do, how do you prepare them before they go abroad? That's the first question. The second question has to do with cost. How do the students support the cost of the program in France? Do you allow your students to transfer their financial resources from Texas A&M to go to France? Or do they have to support that separately from other sources?
Very good question. So we do not ask them to learn French to go on the program. So our programs are all in English. So the global design class was in English. So that burden is on the French students. And the faculty-led summer program that we have is also in English. The internship that we have is also in English. And that's one of the bottlenecks for the semester exchange, because we rely on the English courses that Métiers offer to our students. So our programs at this time are not requiring language. When they go for a semester exchange, they do take a 200 level French course that counts towards a certificate that we have at Texas A&M, but that's just introductory intermediate French. So our program is not something similar to the International Plan of Georgia Tech or the one from Rhode Island, where they do spend a semester in the host country language and do the internship in that language. Our students are mainly doing it in English. We'd like to get there at some point, but right now we're doing in English. Go ahead, Regis. I think your students do get ready.
Yes, but even though it doesn't count on Texas A&M side, we provide French classes to the students if they ask for at different levels. First level is just to be able to speak in the street when they're outside, or to speak to French students. And if students are more advanced in French, they can also find courses for that. So we believe that it's always useful to have this type of French classes next to a study abroad program, next to an exchange semester.
Mm-hmm. Definitely enhances the cultural learning, but it's not one of the requirements for students going abroad at this time. In terms of cost, we have 3 types of programs for the in-person exchange. The first one is the faculty-led, so it's a 5-week program that our students go abroad, they can carry their financial support that they have at Texas A&M for that program, but usually during the summer, not every student have a support. So that's one of the most expensive programs for the students. The other two types of programs that we have is that they're more affordable. So on the faculty led, they have to pay tuition and fees and their travel costs. So it's one of the most expensive for the students. However, it's one of the most popular for our students because during the summer, they want to do something interesting. So a lot of students do sign up for that. The other program that we have is the internship program. They do not need to pay tuition and fees, so that's already reduced the cost. And with the partnership, we're able to support students with some type of scholarship, either for the housing or for the airfare. So that already reduces a lot the cost of the program for them. And the third type of program is the semester exchange, where they can carry all their financial aid to that semester exchange. And the cost of housing in College Station, where the cost of housing in Aix-en-Provence is very similar because they stay in the dorms. So the main difference in cost would be the airfare. And a lot of times those students are able to apply to additional scholarships. So the semester exchange is the most affordable program for at least American students to go abroad. And that's why we focus on the second part of the workshop, the mapping the courses, because the students are interested in going to Métiers for a semester, but they were not able to find courses that would transfer to their degree plan in order for them to graduate on time. So we believe that if we're able to address that area, we'll be able to recruit more students and even diversify the types of students that go abroad to France, because it's going to be a more affordable way for students to go. The price will be basically the same as spending a semester in College Station. And if they have strong support, they can carry that on for the full semester. Students usually for fall or spring have that support. So we would like to see that exchange program growing from 1 student each semester that we had to over 10 students each semester, because we feel that we'll be able to reach the students that don't have the means necessarily to travel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question as the note taker, just about the sort of co-tutelle you have? If I understood correctly, there's an MA exchange as well. How does that work in terms of finances to complete this question?
Yeah, so the dual degree, we're starting it this fall. When they are in College Station, both the A&M students or the Métiers students, they will have to pay tuition and fees in College Station and their cost of living in College Station. When they're in France, in Métiers, they'll have to pay that. Because we have joint research projects, if students are part of those projects, they will get an assistantship, and that will significantly lower, if not cost, most of their costs of that. But this is a program that is starting this fall, and we hope that through the research collaboration, we'll be able to support the students, especially during their semester in College Station, because of the tuition and fees being a lot higher in the US than they are in France.
Yes. That's a part of the future discussions.
I think Isabel has a question.
Yes, thank you very much. I have actually 2 questions. The first one is in relation with your virtual exchange program. How many students do you have on each side? I think you said 28 students from Texas A&M and 2 students from les Arts Métiers.
That's correct. And we also had 8 students from Greece and 4 students from Swansea. And
yes,
we used to...
2 years ago, we had 4 students. With a pandemic, it went down, and we hope to have up to 8 this next semester, fall semester.
Okay. And how many faculty were involved in that project to work with the students?
1 from each institution. So each institution creates the class at their own campus, and students get the grade directly from that faculty member. So 1 from each institution. The faculty member at Texas A&M is the leader and the one that has designed mainly the modules and in the class. But we need a faculty member from each location.
And since it's also a project-based course at the end, for each project, group project, imagine there are 2 Métiers students and 4 Texas A&M students. You have a supervisor, or let's say it's a customer, the sponsor. And we involve also the professors from Métiers. We ask them also to propose subjects to Texas A&M students, so that we share the projects on both sides also at the same time. And we try to link also that to research.
Okay. Okay.
So we had 8 projects and 8 project leaders, which can be a faculty or a industry person, right? So we had more people engaged.
Okay. And my last question was about your internships. How long are they?
8 to 10 weeks. It depends on when our students finish in. So that's a good question, because for American students it's 8 to 10 weeks. And then the Métiers students, when they come to Texas A&M for their internship, is a full semester.
Okay.
Because for them, they need to have at least 4 months for it to count as an international experience for them, for the French students.
Because it's mandatory for the Métiers.
Yes.
Yeah. So they come for the full semester, sometimes even a little bit longer. But for the American students, it's 8 to 10 weeks during the summer.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I think we will continue because we have we still have time at the end to ask questions, maybe.
Sounds good. So continue to the second part.
Yes.
Regis,
so thank you, Maria. That's my turn now. So in this second session of the workshop, we'd like to address the course mapping action that we led between both institutions. And in this part, it will not involve students, even if students are concerned. It involved faculty advisors and professors from both institutions. And I will try to present here the approach that we adopted and the issues, obstacles, and the major bottlenecks we had to overcome. The process is still ongoing, but we have already some results we'd like to share with you. So here you can see the 2 education systems between Texas A&M and Métiers. So we first looked at the 2 education systems to figure out the possible exchanges. We also considered the requirements for graduation imposed by both institutions, Texas A&M and Métiers. I think you're all aware of the differences, which is rather 4 + 2 on the American side and 2 + 3 on the French side, where at Métiers we select students on an entrance exam after preparatory classes, and then they spend 3 years with engineering classes, what we call 3rd, 4th, and 5th year. So at Texas A&M, students would most likely have an international experience during their sophomore or junior year. And at Métiers, students would most likely have it in their 4th or 5th year. So at this moment, it's compulsory for Métiers students to spend 2 months abroad. It will reach soon 6 months. So we need to get ready for that. And Maria presented already the virtual arrows that you can see here, exchanges. That is a very good means for students to know about the partner institution. And as she mentioned, to be student ambassadors. From Métiers to Texas A&M, so that's the arrow from right to the left. We don't have that much problems to select students because the requirements are that the courses have to be in the scope of the semester, mechanical engineering semester. They need to address scientific and technical issues, and the students need to develop managerial skills, and they will take few credits. In the last years, we were able to send 2 to 4 students from Métiers each year. So for Texas A&M students, here we find the bottleneck. So that's the arrow that goes on the other side. So the requirements are a little bit more restrictive, especially for undergraduate programs. Of course, the courses have to be taught in English, but they have also to meet the degree plan requirements at Texas A&M and meet ABET documentation requirements. So this is a bottleneck for reciprocity or for balanced reciprocal exchange. So I will try to present you our approach to overcome this obstacle. So what we did is in our objectives. So thanks to the FACE Foundation grant, we organized a co-hosted faculty networking meeting, putting the professors and the faculty advisors all together. We started with a general meeting where we presented the both organizations, course organization, because we want to increase the number of American students taking part to the exchanges. So we connected subject matter experts of each department at Texas A&M with our Métiers professors and organized 6 different virtual meetings. And the detailed content of the course was presented and several questions were raised. The main goal was to define the courses to be transferable from our Métiers to Texas A&M degree plan of the students without graduation delays. So that was the main bottleneck to solve. So we proposed a thorough approach to achieve this goal. So quickly, the timeline, that's what we went through the 5 or 6 meetings, and normally this should finish by the end of the year. We had to postpone our in-person meeting between the professors because of COVID, but we postponed it to October 2021, where there will be an in-person visits of Texas A&M professors and faculty advisors. And this type of visit will help the professor to visualize the environment and facilities that the students should get during an exchange. And thereafter, I think that professors would act as ambassadors as well in promoting and encouraging these academic exchanges. So now we have another activity for you. I will briefly explain the structure we presented to the professors of Texas A&M, and then I will ask you questions through the Padlet. And maybe you will have other questions, and we will be happy also to share some answers that we had, or maybe you have other ideas for us. That will be nice. So we will here this part was shared when we were all together, and our Métiers professors and Texas A&M professors. And I think you received beforehand a syllabus of one course that we will see here. So here you can see the first year of our métier, and when you go down, Maria, you can see the second year. So on the left side, you can see core scientific courses. In the third year of our métier at the top, in the fourth year at the bottom. And on the right side, you can see more engineering courses. With the stars here, the yellow stars, those are all the courses that we are able to offer to foreign students, courses given in English. Okay, so we shared the syllabus of those courses with the professors, and according to the way we work with pedagogical aspects, we work more in engineering courses with a pedagogical approach based on CDIO. Normally there's a display, next slide. So, which is conceive, design, implement, operate, Of course, we have isolated courses for the scientific core courses, but we try to propose an integrated curriculum with courses that are organized around disciplines with skills and project interwoven. So that's the thing we presented to our Texas A&M partners. And in red, there's a course that I would like to focus on now. It's product manufacturing. It's just an example that we had. And in the next slide, you will see that there's a description of this course. I think you received all maybe the detailed syllabus in the documents that maybe Catherine shared beforehand.
So if I can add one thing here, Regis. So the idea now is that all of you participating here are the subject matter experts for welding, forming, and casting. So we had individual meetings that with experts from Texas A&M that teach this type of course, and then the experts from Métiers that teach this course, so they could see how this course could fit in the Texas A&M degree plan. So we'd like you to imagine that you are the expert, and there will be questions and things like that we'd like you to ask.
Yeah, because this was shared only with subject matter experts in this field, product manufacturing. So I won't go through the detailed syllabus, but that's what we shared with the grading systems, with the prerequisites, with the suggested textbooks. And after like the graduation system, the grading system, sorry, that we propose, the organization in lectures, exercise classes, and practical work in the workshop. And it was quite detailed. We had to spend 1 hour or more to present that to our partners. We had a lot of questions, and we put that in a timeline on the next slide, I think, over one semester. And as Maria mentioned, you are going to be the expert now. Imagine that you are expert in product manufacturing. And we would like to propose you a Padlet activity. So the Padlet activity has 3 questions. The first question is given here. So here you have a Padlet link that you can go to it with a QR code, or Maria, if you can put it in the chat. So we would like to ask you by reading, for example, this Métiers syllabus, if you were a subject matter expert, for validating also the syllabus for an American university degree plan. What questions would you have to complete the validation process for an exchange student? So normally if you connect to the Padlet, you will see again the question. I hope you all managed to connect to a Padlet.
Can you all see the Padlet on the shared screen now?
Yes, we can see it. Great. So just click yes on the bottom right button plus and try to interact with us. You can either like the questions that have already been asked, or you can ask your own questions, for example, or comments, whatever.
So our faculty members were looking for an overlap of about 80% between the classes that Métiers was teaching and what is in the syllabus of something on that topic. And that's where those questions were coming from, exactly how many hours. But would like to see what questions you would have if you were trying to bring a course from France to the American system, and to make sure that we didn't miss anything also. Or what questions you have for us if you were going to do such exercise.
So maybe I will try to share the syllabus if you had a chance to receive it.
I sent the syllabus on the chat.
Okay.
I sent the
Very
PDF
good.
document in the chat, so you should be able to access it. Yeah, I think so.
Yes, that's it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, according to the readings, like we suggest students to read some books, but of course we provide them with handouts that each professors give, and they mainly they have it online through our intranet at Métiers. And how are students assessed through the semester? They are assessed like Métiers students, which means that they have exams through the semesters. In this case, they have 4 exams, I think. And they have lab work also, where they get a mark. And we use a French grading system. You have to be over 10 to pass, but after we find equivalencies with the American system.
Yeah, and the list of topics covered examples of assignments. Those were exactly some of the things that we shared. So we created a Google Drive, and the faculty members from Métiers posted there the old quizzes or old homework or exams that they gave to students. So the faculty members at Texas A&M could really see what was asked of the students and what type of knowledge the students were expected to have at the end of the course.
So discuss the syllabus with the students, with the American students, or that's it, I think. I just try to answer to, it would be great if you can discuss the syllabus with your students to have feedback. We had the feedback from the professors of Texas A&M. Indeed, we went really into the details. We had to present all the exercises. We had to present an example of an exam, for example, because ABET documentation needs that on Texas A&M side. So we had to go really into details.
So someone asked how to use the Padlet. If you click on the link that's there, and there is a plus sign in the bottom that is in pink. If you click there, you're able to write, and then a sticky note should show up. Do you complete pre and post assessment of cultural competencies? That's a good question. So we are starting now a project for all of our students going abroad with pre and post. So what we have before students go abroad is the normal logistics orientation, but we also have a 2-hour raising your cultural IQ, cultural competency type of workshop. And we just do a quiz at the end to see how they were. We have not been doing up to now a lot of post activities. On a faculty-led course, would leave it up to the faculty to do it. However, we're changing it now for the 2021-2022 academic year. And we'll be using the GPI, the Global Perspective Inventory, as kind of the standard assessment tool. But we'll have pre, during, and post reflections and discussions as well in terms of global competency. But that's a new project that we're starting in 2021, and not only with students going abroad to France, but to students going abroad to any country in any type of program. So if they go abroad for 3 weeks on a faculty-led, or for a 10-week internship or full semester exchange, we'll have the students going through the pre, the during, and the post. And we're in the final stages of that project. the pre and the during will be part of the experience itself, and the post will be something they will be doing after they come back. We'll have the post GPI as soon as they finish the program, but we would like to have a post session workshop where they have to write an elevator pitch and present what they did, and even interact with industry on the semester after they come back. But that part is still being fine-tuned for the next semester. Our goal is to have the first pilot of the post program spring 2022.
Yes. I think they're really nice, interesting questions. It reminds me of the questions that I had. What about the lab? There is a virtual remote lab. I think during the pandemic, virtual lab we were doing, but usually it's in person with contact hours.
Yeah, and this one was also a discussion. We had a lot of discussion credits. So we looked at credits two ways. One is the European credit that we divide by two. So 6 European credits would be kind of equivalent to 3 credits at Texas A&M. However, we also looked at the contact hours. We need to have at least 45 contact hours of a specific subject to count 3 credits. So we looked at those two things together to find the equivalency.
Okay. Maybe we can go back to a presentation and because
we'll save this Padlet. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much for your participation. We'll have 2 more activities.
We might need to skip one of them. The last one, maybe Regis.
Yes.
I hate to interrupt, but I think in just a couple minutes we'll wrap up the workshop. So perhaps the participants of this session, if they have any main takeaways, any sort of big ideas that have emerged from this session, there can be an open discussion, and our note taker can take notes of our group's takeaways to report back to the full group in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah. So maybe you can just wrap up the activity 1, Regis, because that's the outcome of the mapping.
Yes. Quickly, I think you asked the good questions, and we found equivalencies between Texas A&M courses and our Métiers courses. Some are not, because they were below the 80% roughly required, but they can also be done as technical electives, because it's a possibility for all the other courses. And by by connecting the professors, we really believe that those professors, when they interact with our professors at Métiers, when we will come to visit our institution, the lab, the facilities, they will act as ambassadors for those programs. So maybe I'm not sure if we go through the 2 activities, we finish with the outcomes. So the anticipated outcomes of those mapping courses is that we have a list of our Métiers courses that have been validated as equivalent to some courses at the departments of Texas A&M, and other courses count as technical electives. We are planning for reciprocal exchange of 5 students with 3 to 4 selected courses that will be in the student degree plan without graduation delays. An outcome that we did not expect by starting this project, and that's what I call serendipity, is by doing the mapping, we said, okay, that this course really match. So we had few courses that really match, and we would like to propose a hybrid program that is based on the infrastructure of a summer faculty-led program with in-person classes taught by our Métiers professors. So we'll bring 12 students of Texas A&M that will participate during 5 weeks to a summer program where the professors will be professors from our Métiers. And this will count in the balance for the reciprocity. And of course, we aim for large and sustainable student participation on both programs in order to develop globally competent engineers for global industry and society.
So with that, we wrap up the session 2. We open for questions, but also our conclusions that if we have faculty and students that are ambassadors that believe in the program with integrated curriculum, that we can build a large program. And with that, we'd like to open up for questions and main takeaways.
Yes, thank you.
So any questions that came up? I think we have 5 minutes for the wrap up before we need to go back to the main room.
55 seconds.
Oops. The note taker, do you need anything from us?
I'll do my best.
No, I think you do great. If you need any help, just let us know. We can jump in.
So thank you all for participating to this workshop again.
Yes, yes, thank you all. Hope by sharing what we went through this past year, these collaborations, you learned something and you can implement in your institutions as well.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for joining. Like Sylvain said, sorry, I'm in my garage. It's the only very quiet place that I could be, and I can't use the background, so apologies on that. We're going to get started with a interactive activity. Like Sylvain said, I don't know if any of you, maybe Americans, have played Kahoot. Maybe our French colleagues have not. But feel free to not join if you're not interested or you don't have a phone, but you'll need to get your phone ready so that you can log in to the website and then put in a code. So I'm going to share my screen and get that started. It's just a quick kind of quiz and also just an introduction so we get to know who's in the room. So I will get started on that. Okay. Sorry, it takes a second to load. Okay, so you want to go ahead and join www.kahoot.it, and then you're going to put in the game pin that's right here. It's 575277, and you'll enter a name. So it can be your name or it can be something anonymous if you don't want your name to be out there. But again, this is just for fun. This isn't anything we're going to quiz you on. It's just something we wanted to kind of get you guys involved this morning or this afternoon. So I'll wait a couple minutes for everyone to get started. And I apologize for the music. That's not something I can turn off, but I'll turn it down.
I'm not hearing any music. I don't know if it's
well, that's great, actually, then, because it's slightly annoying. I'll wait a minute or so more just for you all to get on. You know, it can take a second with technology. Okay, I think we have, well, maybe I'll wait a couple more. Sylvain, should we wait a couple more seconds? I think we have like 28 people in the room. So, okay, I'll wait like 5-10 more seconds to get everyone in. I think you can always join late too. Okay, we will get started. Okay, here we go. All right. Okay, so the first is a word cloud. If you can just put what is your professional role? So we have an idea of who's in the room. We can kind of see you have about 30 seconds to type it in.
You have a limited number of characters, so you have to keep it short.
Great. Okay, so we have a lot of different folks in the room. It looks like we have some program coordinators, a dean, assistant professor, assistant director, international development manager, mobility officer. We also have, I'm sure we have a couple of others, so that's great. So a lot of different folks in the room. So thanks so much for coming. The next are more fun, I promise. Okay, the next is kind of an open-ended question. We just want to get to know what are you hoping to learn from this session today? And this has unlimited characters, so feel free to write what you're interested in. There's about 30-ish more seconds, giving you time to write in. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna show the answers. So we have some folks that asked tips for successful dual degree programs, new perspectives on building these programs, knowing what the expectations are, connections, joint programs between a university and a French one, good practices, how to partner with an institution. So lots of this learning about these kind of programs, lots of best practices, lots of managing, gathering, developing, and building partnerships. So that's great. So hopefully we can answer all your questions for you. So that's great.
That's, yeah,
Okay,
looks great because that's exactly what we
ahead.
had in mind when we devised the presentation. So that's good.
Good to know you're wanting what we're hopefully going to offer. Okay. Okay, the next question is one more word cloud. And when you think about an undergraduate dual degree, what word comes to mind? And you have 30 seconds to write the word. Okay, about 5 seconds left, so type in your words quick. Great. Fees.
Yeah.
That's a good
Central
one.
point. Yes.
And collaboration, definitely student exchange, synergy. Great. Awesome. Okay, the next two questions, the last two questions are going to be a fun quiz. So hopefully this is exciting. So for all of you to kind of get to know what you know, they're very easy, so don't worry. So the next question is a quiz. So how long does it usually take for students to finish the dual degree between UC Berkeley and Sciences Po? And the answers are either 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, or 6 years. And you just click which one aligns with what you think. Okay, so most people did say 4 years, and that's correct. So most of the time it does take about 4 years. We do have some students actually, and we'll talk about this, that are able to finish actually early, which is great, which shows kind of the partnership that we have. I've never had a student take longer than 4 years unless they wanted to. We do have a couple of students that have wanted to take an extra semester or an extra summer just for their own interest, but we've never had a student not graduate on time, which is really great.
But yeah, so the idea, it's somewhere between a mix between the French licence in 3 years and the American bachelor's in 4 years.
So Vicky is in the lead. She answered the quickest. So let's see if she can keep her lead for the last question. Okay. Last question is, what year did the UC Berkeley Sciences Po dual degree program start? 2015, 2013, 2018, or 2017?
Of course, we don't really expect you to know the answers to this question. It's just a starting point for our discussion.
The correct answer was 2015, which the majority of you got, which is great. So yeah, we did start in 2015. We'll go over this in a little bit more detail with what we call the pilot or direct program. And then the first freshman class was admitted in 2016, but 2015 was when we started. So let's see who wins this one. All right. So we have Vicky in third place, Carolyn in second, and Mike May in first. Good job. Okay, and runners up with Matthew and Todd. Matthew, I think I'm a little disappointed that you didn't get the top choice. You know this program, going to be honest. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to go back to we're going to go to a presentation. So hope everyone liked that.
And I'm going to share my screen now. And we'll start the presentation itself. So hopefully you should see my screen and the PowerPoint here. And we should have started with that actually by introducing ourselves. So I'm Sylvain Quatravaux. I work for the Office of International Affairs at Sciences Po, where I'm in charge of the cooperation between Sciences Po and the North American partners, and especially our dual degree programs.
And my name is Amber Dillon, and I work at UC University of California, Berkeley. I work in the summer sessions and study abroad office, and I manage the dual degree programs that we have on campus. So, and I work very closely with Sylvain. So very nice to meet everyone.
Maybe we'll start with a brief overview of our dual degree program between Sciences Po and Berkeley. So the idea is that students spend half of the time at Sciences Po and half of the time at Berkeley. They start at Sciences Po always, spend 2 years in one of the several campuses that we have around France, and then they transfer over to Berkeley for the last 2 years of the program. And in just 4 years, they obtain 2 different bachelor's degrees. They obtain the bachelor's degree from Sciences Po, the exact same bachelor's degree they get if they they followed only the regular program at Sciences Po, but they also obtain the bachelor's degree from Berkeley, the same bachelor's degree they obtained if they did spend 4 years at Berkeley. So it's not one degree collectively awarded by both institutions, it's 2 separate degrees. But of course, half of the process is completed by recognition of the credit completed at the partner institution. All courses are taught in English, both at Sciences Po and at Berkeley. And once students are done with the undergraduate part of the program, they have guaranteed admission to Sciences Po graduate programs in Paris. Now, this is offered to all students admitted at Sciences Po, regardless of the program they are enrolled in. But it's something important to keep in mind. So students, especially French students, tend to complete the program in 4 years and then come back to Paris to obtain their master's degree.
So as you mentioned in the little game, the dual BA launched in 2015 with what we call a pilot, or now we call it the direct program. And this is sort of a transfer option that we still allow students to do to this day. Students select to apply to the Berkeley program in their second year at Sciences Po instead of applying for a study abroad year in their third year. They would apply to Berkeley, they get in, they would go to Berkeley instead of a third year abroad. for a third and a fourth year. So we still do admit students this way. This is like how we get the majority of our French students into the program, as well as some other students from international backgrounds. And we take students from all 7 campuses into the program this way. And then our first freshman class was admitted in fall 2016. We graduated that first class last year in 2020. And that tends to be more American students, US students. However, we do get a mix of those type of students in that program as well. As you can see, we've grown pretty steadily, especially the last couple of years. We've really grown, which is great. The direct program is kind of leveling out just because it kind of self-selects for the students, but you can see it did grow and it's kind of where it's at for the most part. With the freshman program, you can see that we started, pretty small, was still pretty small, and then we've really grown the last couple of years, and we're hoping to continue that process. Even with COVID last year, it was our highest growth year with applications and with students admitted and students selecting the program, which was really great to see that COVID didn't infer on people wanting to go abroad. So that was great.
And of course, the idea of the pilot program was to kickstart the dual degree. So we're really happy that we're now admitting and enrolling more students in the freshman admission track, and that was the idea from the start. In terms of admission, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. For our admissions process, it's a little bit complicated, which can be part of the reason but now I think we've got it down to a science. But for students, they complete 2 applications for the program. So they'll complete a regular UC application. So if any of you are familiar with the University of California system, it's 1 application for the whole 9 campuses. So they'll complete that and make sure that they complete the UC Berkeley side. And then they do a supplemental application for the dual degree specific, which can be found on our specific website, which we'll link to at the end. So they'll complete those 2. They complete them by November 30th, which is the UC deadline. They're reviewed for early admission, which is kind of a nice feature by both Berkeley and Sciences Po. If they get selected for an interview, they do that in early or late January. And then they're notified of acceptance to the dual degree in mid-February, which is really nice. Students get an early admission to this program. So this is usually one of the first programs that they know that they've been admitted to. They have until,
sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to specify that's the beauty of the program, and that's how it works from all the aspects. It's a joint process. So it's a mix of how we do things both at Berkeley and at Sciences Po, and we kind of met in the middle. So students are reviewed by Berkeley admissions as if they were any student applying to Berkeley, but then they also go through the specific application process at Sciences Po, in that they undergo an interview that is conducted by a representative from Sciences Po and a representative from Berkeley. And so the admission process really is a mix of both our way of doing admissions, if that makes sense. But sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
Okay. So yeah, so they'll have to decide if they want the program by May 1, so they have plenty of time to make their decision. For our program specifically, it is possible to be admitted to Berkeley, but denied admission to the dual degree. Berkeley wants to have the right to admit a student that maybe Sciences Po doesn't feel is as good of a fit. And so that would, so they would be allowed to keep their 4-year Berkeley admission. And then if they're admitted to the dual degree, they could also still deny the program and come to Berkeley for a regular 4-year program if they want. We don't get a lot of students that do this. Maybe we'll get 1 a year that chooses this just because it might not be, they end up not being a good fit, or finances tends to be an issue. But if they wanted to go to the 3-year program, the regular Sciences Po program, this wouldn't be they would have to also apply through the Sciences Po process. So some students will ask me if this will also give them the 3-year admission. It won't. They'll have to do the 3-year process. If they wanted to apply to another dual degree, they'd have to follow that process as well. So this only will give them admission to the Berkeley dual degree or the regular Berkeley 4-year program.
Now, just to give you an overview of the academics on slides. So that's what the regular program at Sciences Po looks like. It's 3 years, which is typical for students. So regardless of the program they're enrolled in, dual degrees or the regular Sciences Po program, all students start here. The first year is foundations in humanities and social sciences. So they will have access to the 6 main disciplines offered at Sciences Po in one of the 7 campuses that we have in France. Then during the second year, they choose one of the 3 pluridisciplinary majors that we offer: economy and society, political humanities, or politics and government. These does not limit them in the choice of majors that they do at Berkeley. And there is advising throughout the process, so they are really are clear about what their options are in terms of choice of courses at Sciences Po and then at Berkeley afterwards. So they choose one of the 3 major at Sciences Po, and then at the end of the second year, Sciences Po students enrolled in the regular program choose one partner institution to go abroad. That's mandatory for all of our students. All of our students are required to spend 1 full year abroad as exchange students. The only difference for dual degree students is that instead of spending 1 year as an exchange student at the partner institution, they'll spend 2 years at Berkeley as a degree-seeking student during that time. But you see that it fits nicely within the already existing scheme and curriculum of Sciences Po. And at the end of the bachelor's process, they have access to an offering in master's degree program that we offer in Paris.
Oh, that looks weird. Sorry about that. The majors are all over the place at the bottom, scrambled.
Oh, yes.
But it's okay. So the academic piece at Berkeley, so when they apply to UC Berkeley, they put an intended major on their application. They all apply to the College of Letters and Science, which is our largest college on campus. It's about 80 plus majors. So this specific dual degree is with the College of Letters and Science. So a student can't major in engineering. They wouldn't major in the College of Environmental Design. They wouldn't major in our College of Chemistry or any of that. It's with the College of Letters and Science, which again has the most majors and the most choices. But they're going to come to Berkeley undeclared. So it's kind of nice that students may have an idea of what they want to do when they do this program, but by taking the courses at Sciences Po, they might totally change their mind and choose to do something different at UC Berkeley, and that's okay. Students do that all the time. So a lot of students think, I'm going to do political science, and then they go to Sciences Po and they think, actually, I'm really, really interested in something completely different, and we work with them to choose that major once they get on campus. So when they have a couple of letters and science college requirements that they still have to complete when they get back to Berkeley, but the majority are actually done with their Sciences Po coursework. So the dean of the College of Letters and Science reviewed the courses, decided there was only 2 requirements that they didn't complete. So the majority of the coursework that they're going to take is going to be their major coursework, and they can choose a major that either aligns with the curriculum they did at Sciences Po, or it can be slightly different. Most students will major in the social sciences, but we do have some students that veer off. So the most popular majors by far is going to be economics, political economy, and global studies. So those are our 3 top, and then we get a smattering of students in political science and legal studies. History and sociology tends to be somewhat popular, environmental economics and policy, which is the EEP major, gender and women's studies. But we've had students do film, media studies is tending to be pretty popular now. We have a lot of students that will do a minor, which tends to be really popular. We get data science, public policy, city and regional planning, human rights. Those kind of minors tend to be really popular. And then we do have some students that even pursue a double major, which is possible as well. Again, we have students that have done like a math double or a math minor or statistics. So we get some students that want to kind of focus a little bit more on STEM, and they can end up doing that through Berkeley. So that's kind of how it works here.
And yeah, I forgot to specify something for maybe our American friends who might not be familiar with the curriculum offered at Sciences Po, but we are specialized in social sciences, which is why students enrolled in that dual degree actually tend to pursue social sciences majors at Berkeley. They could pursue major beyond that realm, but since during the first 2 years at Sciences Po, we don't offer any courses in the STEM area, or very few courses in the STEM area. It's of course more difficult to pursue something like engineering or something remote from humanities and social sciences. So how does that benefit? How does this program benefit Sciences Po? Well, it helps us recruit US students who are not willing to let go of a US degree So we have a lot of exchange programs with the US. We recruit a lot of students at the master's level who already completed an undergraduate degree in the US and then come to Sciences Po for a specialization at the graduate level. But we had issues recruiting US students who wanted to come to France, but did not really want to forego the experience of actually obtaining a degree from a recognized US institution. And so in that way, they are able to complete a real course of study in France, obtain a real French undergraduate degree, but still retain the possibility of obtaining a US degree as well. And so I think it's this compromise that really help us recruit these students. We also benefit from the name and fame of UC Berkeley internationally. So it helps us not only in the US, but more generally in Asia, for example, where that name, of course, is quite recognized. And so that helps us in the promotion aspect of our programs. It also aligns with our strategic plan because Sciences Po is really geared towards the internationalization. We've been pioneers in that sector, and it's something that is really important for our institution. And so creating and fostering dual degrees and being really in the business of being an international university, that is something that is very dear to Sciences Po for a long time now. And we're also really happy with the quality of students we recruit through these dual degrees. And so faculty and departments are really, have expressed their joy of having these students in the classroom where they're really interested and lively, and they go beyond what is asked to the regular students. And the students themselves are really engaged both inside and outside the classroom. I think it also has to do with the fact that there are the selection process really tends to select students who are not only excellent academically, but also who are interested in a variety of activities outside of the classroom as well.
So similar to the benefits of Sciences Po, I won't go into it major detail, but it's very similar for Berkeley. Berkeley tends to have a reputation for a really strong engineering program, but we also have very strong social science and humanities. And so this helps retain top students that have an interest in social science and humanities, especially those students that really want to stick within that field and possibly do research work in that field. We have the name recognition of Sciences Po in Europe, as well as we're able to get students from other places. For a regular four-year program, it tends to be mostly students, the international students we get tends to be from China, India, Canada, South Korea, but this we are able to get a lot of students from Europe, which is a little harder, I think, in the normal four-year program. So that's a really nice feature. The dual degree gives crucial space to a lot of our over-prescribed lower division prerequisite courses. They don't have to do those courses mostly when they get to Berkeley, so they're just starting at upper division level. So all of those core impacted courses that are offered on Berkeley's campus are kind of taken out of those, and they get to start at a higher level. So that's really nice. Our chancellor, she has a strategic plan specific for globalization as well. And so this directly aligns with her plan for a more globalization approach within undergraduate and graduate work. And again, like Sylvain said, these students are very, very engaged inside and outside the classroom, and the faculty really, really enjoy them. Our legal studies chair talks about them all the time to me and tells me how much he loves the students in the class. We have a lot of students that get departmental citations, do honors theses within their major, that go on, get top grades. So it really is, we are recruiting top students that are not only, like Sylvain said, academically prepared, but really great in other ways and willing to get involved in and outside the classroom. So I think it's benefited both universities equally.
How this program does benefit the students themselves. Well, of course, they have the chance to study in two very different academic cultures and in two different countries. So it's a very rich and diverse program. They can explore different majors, and they tend to study at Sciences Po the foundations and all the social sciences, and then explore more in detail one or several specific aspects of the social sciences during their time at Berkeley. They have very dedicated advising from admission to graduation, which is key for them to be able to navigate this complex system of transitioning from Sciences Po to UC Berkeley. But that's a benefit it's an added benefit. They, after following the curriculum at Sciences Po and also being taught a little bit to be independent because of the structure of studies in France, they are really extremely prepared for UC Berkeley, and we see that in the results that they obtain there. And of course, they have two very different experiences in a small urban campus, in a small liberal arts university in France, and then in a huge top-tier research university in California. And of course, it's a very, very internationalized experience, not only because they live and study in two different countries, but because it also attracts students from all over the world. So throughout their studies, they are with students really from all over.
I would also add to this that what we see students that get picked up for really top graduate programs, if they choose to not go to Sciences Po or for jobs, we see that students get interviewed, employers and graduate programs tend to be really interested in this type of a program. And so it kind of sets them apart when they're graduating, even if they plan to stay in the US or they plan to go back to Europe or wherever they go. We have students that say like this definitely sets them apart and at least grabs them an interview in different realms because people are really interested in this. It kind of sets them apart. They might have 2 or more languages. They just have the ability to be independent and kind of seamlessly interact with multiple cultures, which I think is ever important in this increasingly globalized world. So I think employers see that on the application and graduate schools and are able to really, I think, choose our students for jobs and graduate programs that are quite strong. Sorry,
Yeah.
Sylvain, I wanted to mention that.
No, that's very true. And they also join 2 very active alumni communities. So that's also something to keep in mind. But yes, thank you for reminding me of that.
So the challenges are many. We're much better off now, but my department, the Summer Sessions and Study Abroad department, actually didn't take this program over until 2017. So it had been running for 2 years out of the dean's office, just to give you a quick background. And it wasn't, to be honest, very well run there. And I think that's why the chancellor sort of moved it to our office, because we run study abroad, exchange programs all around. So we're really able to do that. So I think we've been able to make it a much better program in the past 4 years than it was in the beginning. But in the beginning, when it was run out of the dean's office, students in the program were unknown to most campus partners. Students would come in and say, I'm a dual degree student, and advisors and faculty would be like, who? What's Sciences Po? We have no idea what this is. They have no idea. So students were kind of having to fly by the seat of their pants, figuring out coursework that they needed to do on their own. So when we took over the program in 2017, a lot of advising was needed and a lot of things were really unclear. And so I think that that was a huge piece in the first couple of years, is to get the advising for students, really advise them on what majors they want, what courses articulate, what courses don't, what you can do, what you can't do. Also just getting them known to campus partners. And now campus partners know who these students are and are prepped and ready for them to come in. Course articulation was a huge undertaking, but we've got it now down to a science. At Sciences Po, they use ECTS, they have different hours, they don't have the same syllabi as us, and we have units. We very much rely on syllabi in the US. We very much rely on hours, and it's just very, very different. The curriculum is extremely different than UC Berkeley. So explaining that to faculty, explaining that to advisors, how that worked, working with our transfer articulation unit. I worked with somebody on campus to completely overhaul the transfer system. So now the courses are just automatically transferred in as a course. They're automatically on their transfer credit report. Everything transfers over except a handful of courses. We don't need to do this every year. Also, the top majors that students pick already have pre-approved coursework, so that students just know exactly what courses are going to come over and going to work for their major. So that was a huge undertaking, but definitely something that needed to be done, and just getting them aware of what the different system is. Also, I think seeing that these students were extremely well prepared and smart and ready for upper division courses helped as well. overhauling our website. It was really bad. It's still not great, but we're working on it. We had to, up all of our promotion materials and just get all of that set, physical and online, especially now with COVID, a lot more online promotional materials. Getting the word out was a huge piece. I think, students really didn't know about this program the first couple of years. I think now, as you can see with our numbers, it's definitely the last couple of years students have found out about the program, but figuring out how to get the word out about this very specific program, whether it's virtually, fairs, people figuring that out. And then just clear communication to students and partners. So we no longer require SAT scores as of last year, but we did previously. And I think that was the barrier for a lot of our international students, and they didn't realize they had to take an SAT to do this program. So being very clear with students and staff and faculty in Sciences Po, and also Sciences Po being very clear with us, was something that Sylvain and I have worked really, really hard to make sure that we're on the exact same page and we're advising students exactly correctly. I think we've done a good job now, but those were just some of the challenges. I'm happy to go into more detail if you have questions.
Yeah, and so takeaway and best practices that we wanted to share with you. And of course, we can go into the details of that discussion. But really what we wanted to print is the fact that we didn't start from the idea that we had in mind, like we want to build that huge program with that many people involved, or we really started from what already existed. And I think, for example, the fact that we started at Sciences Po and the students first 2 years than any other Sciences Po student, and then transfer to Berkeley using an already existing process, which is the transfer students, that really helped facilitate the whole putting together of the program. I guess if we had done something differently, starting at Berkeley and then transitioning to Sciences Po, that would have been much more difficult and not really technically possible. So we would have much more difficulties to overcome, and I think really the way is to go the other way around, see what is already in place and how you can fit without changing, or with changing as little as possible in the existing system, how you can fit these programs, and also going progressively. So as we explained, we started with the direct process, which is still in place, but of course the end goal was to go into the joint recruitment and joint admission process in the end. But it was easier to start with students who were already admitted at Sciences Po, who had 2 years of undergrad experience before actually applying to Berkeley, and which was much more similar to the existing transfer students program. I think also something that helped is to have one clearly identified go-to person on each side. And really, I think, Amber, you'll agree with me on that. But I think the struggle really is not between us, but within the institution to make the program work in terms of what we need at Sciences Po and what Berkeley needs. That is the challenges in the discussion between Amber and us. We agree on, okay, we need to transfer that, or we need that document at that time, but then within the institution, that's something different. So in a way, I'm advocating for Berkeley within Sciences Po, and Amber is advocating for Sciences Po within Berkeley. And I think that helps. If we had, if for example, on the Berkeley side, I had 3 or more interlocutors in different services, I don't think that would have worked. And so we need to have one person you can ask questions to, even if in the end the answers might not be from that person, but she or he will be the one taking these questions within the institution. You need also to be prepared to repeat yourself as much as you can to get the word out, not expecting that if you've done one presentation to a department 6 months earlier, now everything is fine, and then they all know about the dual degree. There's always a process where it works in a specific way for your regular students, and then for whatever reason it doesn't work for the dual degree students, and you have to be aware of that, and so you have to repeat yourself, but again, that's how you build. At first it's difficult, but then it starts to be established, more and more people know about it, and then processes change and grow around it. And so you need to communicate both within the institution and outside to increase awareness of the program, because as more people are aware of it, it gives you some kind of momentum that helps you really move the difficulties and the obstacles. So I think that's the main advices and takeaway that we wanted to share with you. We will obviously open the floor for questions. We just share once again with you our names and contacts, and this is the OBA website.
There's a couple questions already in the chat, Sylvain. I don't know if we want to. Vincent, are you? I don't know who's moderating. Is it us just moderating it? Is that how?
No, I'll be moderating.
Oh, perfect. Great.
And it's a pleasure to do so. We already have a couple of questions on your model, and I'd like to preface those questions with one maybe broader issue, which is kind of the elephant in the room. We're talking about Berkeley on the American side. No need to describe the reputation that you have. We're talking about Sciences Po on the French side. Again, no need to talk about the reputation of your School of International Affairs. Do you think that your model is exclusive to the elite institution that you both are, or that there's just no reason that it wouldn't apply to institutions that are serving different types of students, a broader and more diverse student population, but also institutions that are not as prestigious as you both are? And I know it's a loaded question, but I also think it's a question that needs to be addressed.
Sylvain, you can. I think obviously having two really top universities does help for sure, especially if students know that they want to get a job or go to graduate school after, and they want two top institutions. So I think that definitely helps. It helps with numbers and it helps get the word out. I do think it could be still possible with maybe lesser known institutions. I just think you'd have to do a really good job of explaining what the benefits of the program would be to students and families that are choosing the program, as well as be very clear on giving them something extra. So for example, whether that's, admission to a graduate program, whether that's like extra advising or help. Students always want to know what extra things you're going to get, even with this program. And I found that telling them what extras you're going to get is really, really helpful. Like what added bonuses you're going to get as part of this type of a program, not just the two names, but advice, dedicated advising, personal help, the admission to the graduate program, all that. So I think if you did that on a lesser known institution, I think it could still be possible. You just might have to work a little harder to get the students to come.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you, Amber. I don't think it's impossible at all. I think it's just, of course, having two well-known universities help for promotion and for getting the word out. It really accelerates the way the students hear about it. But that's it. I mean, it doesn't make it easier or harder to create the dual degree itself. It doesn't make it magically better for students to be enrolled in that program. It just really helps with promotion around it. But I definitely agree with what Amber just said. I think if you find out ways to get the word out and made it clear for students what is in it for them, I don't think that there is any reason why it shouldn't work with any other institution.
Thank you so much. Interesting questions from Bérangère Guichon. One that I'd like to kind of like build upon. What actions have been taken to ensure the successful integration of incoming students? And I'd like to expand on that in terms of how Berkeley on the US side and Sciences Po on the French side support students with less means. I mean, obviously, it is more expensive to do a dual degree in the US and in France. And so how is either Berkeley or Sciences Po supporting those students? I think it's a key component in terms of addressing the diversity of students that we all aim at serving. And another question in terms of creating a cohort is also from Bérangère, is asking whether French and American students are together during the 4 years of the program, and do they really form a cohort?
Maybe we can take that really quick, just to answer, because that's a quicker question. I'll just take that really quick, and then Sylvain can answer the first one, maybe. Yeah, the students are together in the, yeah, so the students are completely interactive with all students on campus. So at Sciences Po, the dual degree students are taking classes with every other student that's a regular Sciences Po student or a other dual degree student. So they're fully immersed, and the same thing at Berkeley. They're fully immersed with the entire UC Berkeley cohort. And so students do take classes with their French and American colleagues. They do form a cohort in the sense that we have the cohorts of students that are joining the program at each year. But yeah, they're fully integrated. So they're not sort of like only taking classes with their set students that are in the program, which is kind of a nice feature as well. Sylvain, did you want to take the first question?
Sure, and that actually makes me realize that we haven't talked about the fee structure of the program, which is very important. So I'm sorry for that oversight. So in that dual degree program, students actually pay tuition only at the institution where they are currently taking courses. So they pay tuition at Sciences Po for the first 2 years, following Sciences Po tuition rules, as if they were, and they are, a regular Sciences Po students. And then during the last 2 years of the program, so during these first 2 years, they don't pay anything to Berkeley, and they only pay to Sciences Po. And then during the last 2 years of the program, they don't pay anything to Sciences Po, and they only pay to Berkeley following Berkeley's rules. And so each institution has its own way of addressing that very crucial questions. At Sciences Po, we have for European students, for students who are whose fiscal residence is within the European Economic Area, we have a sliding scale. So students pay according to the wealth of their family, and they pay anywhere between 0 and 12,000 euros a year. And at Berkeley, they have a very, and maybe Amber, you want to go more into the details of that, but there is a very specific policy for Californians, especially for students who are less well-off students who are from California. On top of that, and of course, sometimes it's difficult to actually be able to correspond to both criteria. We do have some students who are able to benefit from both programs, but it can be challenging. We have also some grants and scholarships that might not be specific to the program, but are open to these students as well. We have also one program that is dedicated to the dual BA, even though it's still limited in terms of scope. So we are working on expanding that. And last but not least, at least from the US standpoint, for students who would like to spend and obtain a 4-year degree in the US, you could look in a way as only paying 2 years worth of tuition at Berkeley to obtain a degree that is the exact same degree as you get if you spent 4 years there. And the tuitions on the Sciences Po side is for American students significantly lower than what they would be accustomed to pay in the American system. I don't know if there is anything you want to add to that, Amber, maybe?
It's definitely a barrier, I think, for some students, and we are definitely trying to work on it. I'm not going to pretend like it's not, especially for you. Some U.S. students can't use financial aid for their first 2 years at Sciences Po. So for students that are heavy on the need, it can be challenging because they don't, even though it's cheaper at Sciences Po, they can't use their aid. So we developed this past year a couple of scholarships for students for social media, which we're testing out this year. We also are, we still are working with our financial aid department to see if there's a possibility that they could use federal aid. Again, that's a really long conversation, and I think it's going to take a while. And then for international students, it is expensive to come to Berkeley for 4 years. There are ways we can offset costs. There are some small scholarships they can apply to. Some students can graduate in 3.5 years instead of 4, which can offset the cost of 1 semester, which is a huge, and I work with students to do that. Also, we have a guaranteed housing option called the Student Cooperative, which is a really low cost option for students, and it includes meals. So students that, while we can't offset the tuition cost, we do offset living expenses by giving that as a guaranteed option to students once they're on campus. And so again, there is a huge barrier. We're trying our best to think of new ways, possibly get donors to help with scholarship. That's been something we've been working on, but it's definitely a work in progress. And then the question about integration, I think, Vincent, that you asked with integrating incoming students for Berkeley, I work with them from when they get admitted to when they graduate. So when they're in their second year, I work with them to figure out what courses they want to take, what majors they're going to take. They already know what classes are going to transfer. They take part in what's called our Golden Bear orientation when they get to campus. So they do orientation with all the rest of the transfer students. And then I work with them throughout their entire process at Berkeley to make sure they're seamlessly going to interact with their major advisor, their international advisor, career center, things like that. And then students also live in community housing, which I think helps with meeting other students and not feeling like they're isolated once they get to campus. So that's kind of how that works. Sorry, I'm trying to answer things quickly. I know we're running out of time.
On the Sciences Po side, maybe to make it clear, so we have 7 different campuses, 3 of which are offering programs entirely in English. And so that the 3 campuses that works with our dual degree programs. So students are not all in the same campus during the first 2 years at Sciences Po, and direct students can come from any of the 7 campuses. So there is less of a cohort feeling from the start from the entire promotion of students on the Sciences Po side. However, since it's fairly small campuses, they are aware of the other students doing the dual degree at the same time. There are exchanges about the challenges and difficulties of doing that. And so it creates some kind of a spirit of cohort. And then once they all join together at Berkeley, I think that's where really the cohort spirit takes off.
There's an interesting trend in the questions, which has to do with regulation and matching bachelor programs and master's programs. And I'm referring to questions by Catherine Engel and Nellie Wadsworth. Nellie asks, what are the government regulations in doing dual degree programs in France and the US? What are the requirements from the accredited agencies? And Catherine says, it's easy to see how intriguing it is for US students. How do you get Sciences Po students to accept the 4-year degree process? Is it because of the dual degrees? Here, I just want to say a couple of things and emphasize something that kind of like maybe passed unnoticed to some of you, which is that we're not talking about a joint degree. All students, and Amber and Sylvain will confirm, graduate with both a degree from Berkeley and a degree from Sciences Po, which means that there's no accreditation process. There's no regulation on the part of either the French government or the or U.S. accrediting institutions, because those the students are getting degrees that are already accredited on either side of the Atlantic. And but again, I think it's important, and it was one of the questions that I wanted to ask from Amber and Sylvain, is why you made that choice of 2 degrees rather than 1 joint degree, the Berkeley Sciences Po degree could have been. But the other thing which I would like to underline for everybody's benefit is the fact that Sciences Po is actually a 3+2 model traditionally for most of the students. So it's a 5-year degree. And it's something that a lot of American universities and or colleges could talk about, which is the trend right now of having accelerated curricula as a 3+2, for example, or 4+1, in order to combine the master's and the bachelor. And those this double degree program fits well into this model. And again, Sylvain and Amber will talk to that, but I don't see any problem for the French students in taking a 4-year degree, which serves in a way as a bachelor, but prepares them for a 1-year master's.
So I would say that a lot of French students find that they can then get a job in the United States. I know that in France that you usually have to have a master's degree, whereas students find that once they have both degrees from Berkeley and from Sciences Po, they actually, some of them will work in the US for a year, 2, 3 years to get experience before they go on to a master's program somewhere. So that tends to be something that intrigues some French students to stay in the US and work before getting their master's. I know we're running out of time and I kind of forget what the question was.
Yeah, sure. In terms of, so why we did not do one joint degree, I think that's is linked to what I said earlier about takeaways and lessons. That would have been way too difficult. I know that it would have been really difficult to have to join Sciences Po and Berkeley to agree on building together a new curriculum that fits with one another requirements and expectations. And so that way we still keep our freedom in devising our own curriculum, having our own processes, but it's just that we recognize what the other has to offer as at least equivalent to what we offer. That's basically the idea of doing a joint corporationally, working internationally. We think that what the partner has to offer equals what we have to offer. And so whenever a student is doing something for a year or longer than a year at the partner institution, we recognize that as a year's worth of courses and credits. However, going beyond that and then mixing the way of recognizing, creating, even counting the credits, that would have been a nightmare, really, frankly. So I think it's way easier to do it that way. Credits taken at Berkeley counts towards the Sciences Po degree. Credits taken at Sciences Po counts towards the Berkeley degree. But still, each institution retains requirements and processes. And one last thing is these model of 2+2 undergraduate degree is not the only thing that we've explored internationally. We have a couple of what we call BAMAs, so 3+5 the partnerships, and it's definitely there's not one recipe to do dual degrees or mixed curriculum or joint programs internationally. Anything goes, really, and there is a lot of possibilities and potentialities to explore. I think you need to find what fits the best with your own model and what your partner institution wants to do and can do as well.
So we have 1 minute left. I don't know if there's Sylvain, did you want?
I think that before we wrap it up, I have one more question. Comes from Mohammed, which is really very, very interesting. What would be a good example of a small project, starting small? We're all daunted by the perspective of setting up a dual degree, and so where do you start?
I tried to answer that briefly in the chat. Yeah, that's what I said. I said maybe even try a small transfer program just to start, like with a trusty exchange partner that you already have a really good partnership with, that the courses work, the courses transfer. You maybe have a couple of students come to start to see what it looks like and then grow from there. Or just like Sylvain said, if you don't have an exchange, start an exchange. That's what I would
we started some of our dual degrees at the master's level with exchange programs. That way, you know that students are interested in both ways. You are able to send students and you're able to receive students. You already have to map out some kind of curriculum and make sure that courses taken.
To first of all, thank you all for participating. Also, one small lesson that I learned is that the three workshops combine perfectly. Why? Because the third workshop, which I attended, the last question was, how do we start small? How do we initiate such a program as a dual degree? And the answer is in workshop number 1 and workshop number 2, which is obviously short programs as appetizers, as moments when you merge the two teaching teams and you initiate research and you get students, staff, and faculty to meet. And then obviously designing a course together and transitioning from virtual to in-person mobility. So this was by design, maybe a little bit, but this was also a happy accident. So I really want to give all of my thanks to all the presenters. You all did a wonderful job. I also want to thank very, very, very much the whole team at the French Cultural Services who worked tirelessly in the last month for this. We hope you learned a few things from that, but this was really a labor of friendship and of partnership with our friends over at AskU. And Jody, again, many, many thanks. And we hope that this is only the first of many events with you guys.
Definitely. Thank you, Vincent. This has been an amazing event. And I will definitely say we could have planned it the way we did, but I think how it worked out definitely was a happy accident. All the notes I was making, definitely, as you stated, Vincent, that question was answered. And I implore everyone, watch the videos from workshop 1 and 2. I was, jumping around in the different rooms, and I'll definitely say that they string together very nicely. If you're on your journey to just starting in partnerships with French institutions, watch them like you would watch a Netflix series. 1, 2, and 3. They come together quite nicely. And there have been some questions in the background, asking about matchmaking and so forth. AskU member institutions. Quite a few of you are on here. We are working. We intend, yes, to continue to work very, very closely with the French Embassy. And so any questions that you might have after this webinar, feel free to email me. You also have the contact information for the staff at the French Embassy. Feel free to include us on all of your communications so that we can help you all moving forward. Thank you again.